Good morning, everyone. Myself Manish Kumar from NIT Agartala. I am going to discuss problem of Codeforces round 217, Division 2. And the problem code is Rook, Bishop, and King. I will don't waste time in reading problem. I will simply understand you what the problem is saying. Here we are given 8 cross 8 chessboard. So there are total 64 squares. Right? There are total 64 square and each square is called here is field. And see here where we have three pieces of chess. One is rook, second is bishop, and third one is king. And every piece have some rules. A rook moves any number of fields horizontally or vertically. A bishop moves any number of fields diagonally. And a king moves one field in any direction horizontally, vertically, or diagonally. And Pete is thinking about the following problem. What minimum number of moves is needed for each of these pieces to move from field R1 C1 to field R2 C2? R is simply here is row and C is column. So we are given two fields, position of two fields. We have to find the minimum number of moves for each of the pieces. We have read the rules. Now we are seeing the input. The input is basically saying that the input contains four integers R1 C1 R2 C2, the coordinates of the starting and the final field. Coordinates of the starting field is R1 C1 and final field is R2 C2. The starting field does not coincide with the final one. We can assume that the chessboard rows are numbered from top to bottom 1 through 8 and the columns are numbered from left to right 1 to 8. And simply we have to print the minimum number of moves. The rook, bishop and the king is needed to move the field R1 C1 to field R2 C2. If a piece cannot make such a move, print a 0 instead of the corresponding number. I'm making the chessboard, then I will understand you the test cases. See here, I have made the chessboard here. I'm taking the first test case. The first test case is 4316. Where R1 is 4, C1 is 3, R2 is 1 and C2 is 6. Now 43 is the field I have taken here, 43, and 61 is that field. We have to move a rook, bishop and king from that field to that field. So we have to find the minimum number of moves for each piece. See here, we have observed here that these 2 points, which are the 2 points? 4, 3 and 1, 6. These lie along the diagonally. You can see here. See my cursor here. These are lying along the diagonal. So for bishop, because bishop moved diagonally, so we can directly reach from that point to that point in one step. So in one step you can move directly. And how will you move your rook? We know that rook will move vertically, horizontally. Okay, so rook will move in two steps. First he will go that point. After that he will move to the that field. So in total two steps rook can move. So and how can king move? We know that king will move only one step in either direction. So the shortest path for king is he will move along the diagonally. So first he will go to that point. After that he will go that point, and last he will go that. So total he run total three steps from this point to this point, and then this point. So we have observed here, if the position of the two fields that are given lies along the diagonally for any lie along the diagonally, then for rook we have total three steps. Sorry, we have total two steps. And for bishop we have total one step, because bishop move along the diagonally and our pieces lying the diagonally, so we have total one step. And for king, well, king, here we see that the king will move three steps. Then how will you find it three steps? We see here that the difference of row and column, you can see here R1 is row and C1 is column. So the difference of the rows and column are same because they lie along the diagonally. So the difference of R1 minus R2, we have to take mod of R1 minus R2. So R1 minus R2 is basically 3 and C1 minus C2 is also 3. So king will move 3 steps, and for king it will be R1 minus R2, R1 minus R2, or C1, C1 minus C2. So we have dealt with the first condition, first test case. You have understood if the position of two fields lying the diagonally. So we have a fixed number of moves for each rook, bishop, and king. I will move on to the second test case. Now here I am taking the second test case. The second test case is R1 is 5, C1 is 5, R2 is 5, C2 is 6, and C2 is 6. Now I am simply locating its position 5 5. Where is 5 5? 5 5 is that point. Where is 5 6? 5 6. 5 6. 5 6 is that point. Okay. Now we first will move rook. Now rook will move horizontally and vertically. So if our rook is here, we can move in one step to go there. So for rook we have total one step. Then bishop. We'll see bishop. Now bishop will move diagonally. So we have to reach from 5 5 to 5 6. Then we cannot go here diagonally. You cannot go diagonally because the pieces lie along the horizontally. So you cannot, if you move any number of moves diagonally, we know that bishop will move diagonally. So there is no any step, there is no any move to go to that point. If you go diagonally, then you don't reach that point. Any number of moves, if you go diagonally, that from that to that, that to that, we have to go from that position. Reach you cannot reach that point. So for bishop it will be zero zero moves. For bishop it will be zero. And king, and for king, you know that king will move any number of in any direction with one move. So the king will move from that point to that point directly. So for king there is total one move. Here that it is not always that bishop will always we will observe the pattern here that if now see I'm taking another example. Here suppose if the position of two fields lie along the same horizontal level, I'm taking the same horizontal level, suppose this point, and I can take this point. Okay. So they lie along the same horizontal level. So for bishop, for bishop, for bishop, we can move directly. Like, suppose, mm, 1 minute. Suppose we are taking that point and I'm taking that point. Okay. So I will bishop if the position of two fields are on the same horizontal level. Then for bishop, we know that bishop will move horizontally or vertically for in any number of steps. So bishop will move directly from that point to that point. So for bishop, he can move directly in one step. Sorry, this is for rook because rook will move horizontally or vertically. So for rook, in one step, rook can move directly. So for bishop, we know that uh, we know that bishop will move diagonally. So in one step, bishop cannot go directly from that point to that point. So how can we move? How can bishop move? So bishop first, because we know that bishop will move diagonally, so he will first move from that point, from that point to that point, because bishop will move diagonally. So this is the one step, and in the second step, he will reach that point. So there is total in two steps. In two steps, bishop will move. Bishop move from that point to that point. And we have seen in the previously test case because they lie along the same horizontal level, but you cannot move bishop in any number of moves. So you have to check. So we have observed here that like if the difference of the column, we have seen that the column here c1 is 3 and c2 is 7. So difference of column c2 minus c1 is equal to 4. Okay, c2 minus c1 is 4. Now what we can observe here that if the difference of the columns is divisible by 2, the difference of the column is divisible by 2, then bishop can move in two steps. This is the fixed number of steps. Now we can check any two positions which lie along the same horizontal level whose difference of the column will be divisible by 2. Then for bishop he will move in two steps. We can take any number. Suppose I am taking, suppose I am taking that point and that point. So difference, now here difference is, sorry, here difference is will be 5. Cannot take, I am taking that point. Okay. Now we see here the column is 2 and here column is 8. So the difference is 8 minus 2, 6 is divisible by 2. How can we move bishop? can move bishop diagonally from that point to that point, then that point. Because we have to move along the diagonally, so you can directly raise to that point. There is forming a triangle, isosceles triangle. Okay, so if you we have observed here that if the position of the two fields lie along the diagonally, and then for bishop we have total two steps. For rook, and for rook he can move directly from that point to that point. So from for rook he will directly move from that point to that point. So for rook it will be for one step. And for king, you know that king will move one step. So king will move from that point to that point, and that and so on. Okay, so for king, total number of steps is difference of the column c2 minus c1. Now we can say here that we can observe here that if the difference of the column is not divisible by 2, then what will be the case? If we will also have to see here. Okay, suppose if the difference is not divisible by 2, suppose I'm taking the second field is here. Okay, suppose I'm taking the second field is here. So how will your rook move? For rook it is very simple. It will move from that point to that point in one step. Okay, but for bishop we'll have to see how will bishop move. So if you take, like, suppose I'm for bishop I'm going to that point. Okay, so he cannot reach that point. He cannot reach that point. Okay, he will reach that point but not that point. So if I move from that point to that point, then we cannot reach that point. Okay, you can see here you cannot move that point, you cannot reach that point. So if the difference of the column is not divisible by 2, you have to then bishop will have zero move. Bishop cannot reach that point, so we have to print bishop 0. You can store bishop total number of steps will be 0. And the for king it will be the same, like difference of the column in total number of steps for king will be the difference of the column c2 minus, you have to take mod it. C1 might be greater than c2, so you have to take mod. Okay, now similarly if we have the position of two rooks lie along the vertically. Okay, we have seen horizontally, then we have to see vertically. They lie along the same vertical position. So as we have discussed here, as we have discussed for rook, it will be the same case, like total number of steps in one step he will move. And for bishop, the same case, if the difference of the rows will be divisible by 2, then total number of steps for bishop will be 2. Bishop will be 2, and for king it will be the difference of the rows for king, because we know that king will move one step, so the total number of steps will be r2 minus r1. Here we have seen that the difference of the rows not divisible by 2, so here bishop will have 0 move and king have r2 minus r1 move, and rook will have 1 move. Okay, we have seen here that. Now I am taking the fourth case, fourth case, fourth case. Okay. Now, what will be the fourth condition? Now, fourth condition is the last condition, that if the position of the two fields, if the position of the two fields does not lie along horizontally, the position of two fields do not lie along vertically, does not lie along vertically, does not lie along diagonally. If lies at any position, if lies at any position, like what we have explained in the third case, it is different from that. So I am taking, suppose I am here at position 1 5. Suppose I am in position 1 5, and I have the second field is, suppose I'm taking 7 7. So the 2 points does not lie along the vertically in the same line, and this point also does not lie along diagonally. So it is the different from the three cases. So what we have to do here, so for rook it will be very simple, like because we know that rook will move horizontally or vertically. So for rook you can reach from that point to that point and that point to that point. So in two steps you can reach directly from that point to that point. So for rook it will be total two moves. Now we have to check for bishop. For bishop it might be 0, and we will see here how will it be 0. First we have to check in which condition it will be 0, or some, either it is taking some value, like either it will, you can move diagonally, we will see. Suppose suppose how we can move diagonally, not directly diagonally, but you can go in some other way diagonally. So suppose I'm taking that point to that point. Okay, how you can move? Okay, see my position of cursor. Okay, how we can move? First, you, from that you can reach from that position to that position. You have to move diagonally, not vertically, horizontally. Okay, then from that position to that position. So in which cases it will, not all the cases you can reach direct, you can reach. So there will be two steps. There will be two steps you can reach from that point to that point. So we have observed a pattern here, that we have seen first, like here R1 is 1, R2 is 5. Okay, C1 is R, so C1 is 5. Then I'm erasing here, R1 is 1 and C1 is 5. C1 is 5. R2 is 7 and C2 is 7. But we can see here that if you find the difference of the rows, R1 minus R2, R1 minus R2, we have to take mod. Mod of R1 minus R2 is 6, and mod of C1 minus C2 is 7 minus 5, 2. We can see here that both of them, 6 and 2, is divisible by 2. Like if you divide both with, we take the modulo by 2, then in both the condition modulo will be 0. So we have observed a pattern here, that if the difference of the rows and the columns both will be divisible by 2, both, not one, both will be divisible by 2. Then mm, for bishop it will be total two steps. In two steps you can directly move. And for king, and for king, and for king, what is the number of steps? So how you can reach to the king? So here that I am counting the position. For king, you can reach diagonally how many number of steps here. King will move. I am simply suppose king is here. One, two, one, two, three, four, five. In total six step. In total six step. How you can find six step? So the sixth step will be the difference of the rows or can be column. So if I am taking here that here r1 minus r2 is 6. Okay. So here the king will move in total 6 step. So you have to check whether which is greater, either 6 or 2, which is greater. You have then the king will move in that move. Okay. So here 6 is greater. The total number of steps for king will be 6. So now we have sin sin. Okay. Now we can check that. Okay. Suppose I am taking the position R1 is 1, C1 is 4, R2 is 5, and C2 is 6. You can see here that the rook, for rook we have to total. First we have to check whether these points lie along the same horizontal level or diagonally or vertically. So we have seen here that this does not lie along the same horizontal level. This does not lie along the same vertical level. Okay. They do not lie along the diagonally. So how we can move? So for for rook we have total two steps from go from that point to that point, that from that point to that point. So for rook it will have total two step. Now you have to check bishop. In the previous we have explained that if the difference of the rows and columns both are divisible by 2, and also both, if both should not be divisible by 2, then in that case also you have to, for bishop there will be total two moves. Here we can see, observe the pattern here, that if the here difference of rows, as r1 minus r2 is 4, r1 minus r2 is 4, like 5 minus 1 is 4, and c1 minus c2 is 6. C1 minus c2 is 5. So we see the one r1 minus r2 is even, and this is so. So both 4 will be divisible by 2, but 5 will not be divisible by 2. So in that condition, for bishop there will be a zero move. Like you cannot go diagonally. So first time I am explaining you, if I will go from that point. So we have, suppose this to this. Okay. 1 4 and 5 6. So here 1 minute. If you take r1 is equal to 2, suppose r1 minus r2. Here is r1 is, suppose I'm taking 3. Okay, 3 6. Okay, 3 6. Suppose here I will take r3 is 6. Then r1 minus r2 is 4. 3, 4, 6. Suppose I give 5, 6. 5, 6, and I'll take 1, 6. 5, 6, and 1 minute. Suppose I'm taking R1 is 1, C1 is 3, R2 is 5, okay, and C2 is 6. C2 is 6. Like I'll see the position. 1, 3 is here, and 5, 6 will be there. So we can see here that R1 minus R2. R1 minus R2 is equal to 4, and C1 minus C2, we have to take mod. Here, this is the mod. C1 minus C2 is 3. So one is the even quantity and the other is the odd quantity. So in that condition, there will be zero move for bishop. You can see here that if you go, you cannot go directly from that point to that point. Okay, you cannot go directly. So you have to take, like if you take from that position, then you will also not go. So we have observed a pattern there. If both, if if one is even quantity and the other is one odd quantity, then in that condition we have to assign a bishop. There for bishop there will be a zero move, and for king, how many moves? You have to simply take the difference of the rows and the difference of the column, which one is the highest. We have to mm, print. We have to print, and here how many moves will be there? Like here for king, he will go from that point. Oh, for bishop, if it will not be divisible by 2, then you have to simply print the difference of the rows or the difference of the columns. Okay, see here I have explained you all the test cases. So you can see my code here. I'm taking the input R1, R2, C1, C2, R1, C1, and R2, C2. Then I have explained you the first case the same as if if the two fields lie along the diagonally, then their difference of the rows and columns will be same. And we have assigned rook is equal to 2 bishop for 1 and k is equal to difference of the rows. The same if they lie along the horizontally, I have explained you, then they lie along the vertically. And in the other cases, if they don't lie along horizontally, vertically or diagonally, in that case we have explained you all the test cases. And in the last you have to simply print the required moves for rook, bishop and king. So you can go through my code. Thank you. Thank you.